بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to day 3 of the Successful Parenting Workshop, and we'd like to thank you for staying with us and being part of this journey. Our children play a very important part and a very important aspect in our lives, and inshallah, with dua coupled with good parenting skills and psychology skills and Islamic values which underpin them, inshallah, this journey will be a journey that will be a happiness for the parent. Hassan Basri mentioned that a very beautiful saying. He said, لا والله لا شيء قر لعين المسلم من أن يرى ولدا أو ولد ولد أو أخا أو حميما مطيعا لله عز وجل. He says that by Allah, what gives a believer the greatest joy, and we know we make the dua that, oh Allah, make our children and our family the coolness of our eyes. Hassan Basri, Rahmatullah Ali, mentions this, that the greatest joy that a parent will see is when he observes his child in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When he sees his child in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that makes that parent the happiest. It gives the parent the greatest joy and the greatest satisfaction. And if I had to ask you, sometimes when a child is 3 years old or 4 years old, and the child puts on the burqa, or the son puts on his topi, and he begins to perform salah, sometimes with the parents, sometimes with the mom. That is such a beautiful scene. That seeing a child from such a small age in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the joy you get knowing that now your child, in their own cute words, recite Surah Al-Fatiha or Surah Al-Ikhlas, or when you hear your child reading Durood Sharif or Salawat and Salam upon our beloved Master Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this gives the parent the greatest joy. And many a times also, as the child grows older, and when you see that child in obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you see that child becomes a community leader, a child that is involved in social work, a child that is involved in the effort of da'wah and tabligh, a child that is involved in tazkiyah, a child that is studying to become a hafid of Quran, to become an alim. This gives the parent the greatest joy. This makes the parents the most happiest. When you see your child as a good child with good akhlaq, with compassion, with mercy, with good social interaction, this makes a parent the most proudest. And so today, going on to the adolescent, that now when a child becomes a teenager, it's important for us to understand how to deal with that child, because for many times this becomes the most trickiest part in the upbringing of a child. So we will be looking at observations on adolescents, how to understand them, engage and interact with them. And so the most important here today is to understand how to deal with teenage children. And it stems by understanding the psychology of what's happening in a child, and to understand the changes that are happening with the child. And once we understand this, it equips us better to deal with the child. We can be more proactive in helping the child into adulthood. There is a very beautiful hadith of our beloved Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, wherein he sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, "Ash-shababu shu'batu min al-junun," that youth is a branch of insanity. Youth is a branch of insanity because we, what children do and how they act is sometimes not logical. As adults, we can see this is such a logical argument, such a logical thing to do. But that child, when they're growing up in their teenage years, in their minds it's logical, but in reality it is illogical. And so we can understand this based on the premise of the hadith of our beloved Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that why is this a branch, that youth is a branch of insanity. It will help us understand how to help that child. If someone is not well, but if you can understand how they thinking, how they are acting, puts you in a better position to assist that person. So it's important that we can understand the psychology, or what's happening with regards to our children. And so the first thing is that there is a great increase of the secretion of hormones and glands. Now the child is growing up. There is this rush of secretion of hormones, the growth hormones, and what happens is it takes some time for the body to adjust, and also the child themselves cannot fully understand or comprehend what is happening to their body, the changes that are happening to their body. And for many people, and for most people, yeah, what our internal physiology plays a part on how we interact and how we perceive the world. The second is the nervous system, and research has shown that the zone responsible for emotion develops at a faster rate than the zone responsible for rational reasoning. So, what does this mean? It means that the rational brain, wherein a person can think clearly, grows at a slower pace or develops at a slower pace than the emotion of a child. So, the emotions of children at that age, of teenagers at that age, is at a greater pace than the rational mind of a child. And that is why you can see that sometimes you look at the youngsters and see, "Oh, what silly things these youth are doing, these kids are doing." It's like really crazy what they are doing, because the emotion, the adrenaline, that's playing a greater part in what in driving their decisions. Whereas as time progresses, then you develop your rational reasoning. You can think more clearly. You get angry, but you are able, because of your rational mind, you are able to think more clearly on how to deal with a situation. You get sad. Your rational mind gives you a better way of dealing with that situation when it comes to anger, when it comes to happiness, and many other parts. So this is why it is a very difficult stage for the youth. And it's important as parents that we understand the difficulties that are happening. It's not only the in terms of the psychological, but the physiology, the physical changes that are happening. And so the adolescent has a confusion. They expect their parents and all adults to treat them as a mature person, while they often know better than children in their behavior. And this is this dilemma that we're facing with. The child wants people to treat him like an adult or treat her like an adult, but their behavior are like children. And as I mentioned previously, why it is so. So this is how this child feels that now I'm an adult. Their body grows, they're much more stronger, so they feel it, and they're much more bigger, and they're much more vibrant. So they feel that people must treat them as adults, but their behavior many a times are like how a small child would behave. And this comes to a very to understand the mindset of the adolescent. And so now they're growing up, they're reaching a stage where they can now think for themselves, and they tend to develop this a sense of idealism. And what happens is that they think the world is or works in a certain way, that the world actually works around them, how they feel it should be. But the reality, that is why sometimes the suggestions of the youth, which is very important to get, but you can sometimes marvel that this child or this teenager, they're not really thinking, they don't know the realities of life. So they're very idealistic. I'll just go out and I'll do this and I'll earn money and I'll make money, but they don't realize that it's not just so simple going out and making money. You have to work hard for it. You have to earn. You have to save. It's a process. But that child, no, I'll just go out and I'll start selling something and I'll make money. They in the sense of an idealistic realism. So they miss the mark of realism. What actually is, or how things actually work, that teenager doesn't think it in that way. So they're thinking in a different way, in a broader way, which misses the mark of realism. So they have no frame of reference. So a child does not realize the realities on the ground because they have no life experience. A child might think, what is it for me? I can just go out and come back late, or, I can just go with my friends, or I can just take a walk down the street. They don't have the realities of what is happening. They have no frame of reference. They have no frame that to actually make money. They all sometimes feel I'm just going to make money like that. They don't have this frame of reference that it takes hard work, it takes effort. There are sometimes disappointments that happen. Okay, and then the wish for independence. The child now, as they're growing up, they want to be independent. They don't want you to tell them what to do. They don't like to be told. And so the parent, because the parent has a sense of experience, a sense of reality, and they want to be very want to direct their children to the straight path. They want to advise their child, but the child doesn't want to be told. So, with all good intentions of the parent, the child refuses to accept that advice, because the child feels that the child is going to be undermined. I'm now an adult, and I can think for myself. So the child is searching for this. The teenager is searching for this. I can think for myself now, and so they tend to resist advice, even if it's good advice and it is sincere advice by the parent. So they don't like to be told. This plays a very important aspect in a child's life: the social group, the friends of a child. An adolescent has the feeling that he or she belongs to a generation other than their parents. And the social groups are very, very, very important. Whether it is an online social group, whether it's friends at school, whether it's friends when they hang out, but friends play a very, very important role in the life of the child. And when they see their friends and they see their parents, they feel the parents, they are outdated, whereas my friends, we understand one another, and life works according to how our group understands the world or views the world. So the social groups plays a very, very important part in the life of the teenager. And what is the impact of the social groups? They are very peer orientated and need a sense of belonging. So children, especially teenagers, they feel that they need to belong to a group, to be part of a group. Okay, so the social groups are very, very strong, and that is why they're willing to prove to their friends that they can belong to that group. And this is where you see many a times that you see these youngsters, you see these teenagers doing really silly things just to prove that they're part of their friends or they are cool. These videos that had come out now, the TikTok videos, wherein these youngsters they jump. There are two people on the side, and one jumps, and they kick him at the bottom, and the person falls. And how many people? This went viral. This was all over, and how many children actually got hurt? But this is a sense through, especially in today's time with social media, they want to prove to people that that they are brave and that they can also be part of something greater. They are also part of their generation, and they're very cool. So they're willing to prove to their friends how cool they are, and willing to do silly things. They're also willing to cover for their friends. Many a times, you know, they will always cover for each other. Even if you have to ask if your child had done something wrong and you have to ask your child's friends, they'll cover for one another. Because this is how group dynamics are. All right? And their advice comes from their friends, it doesn't come from you. So if their friends tell them something, that is in their mind, it is like haq. It is the truth. So they're willing to listen to their friends more so than they'll be willing to listen to other people. So their friends play a very, very uh, important part in a child's life. That's why also that Nabi Sallallahu said to this effect that a person's deen is based on the friends that a person has. Oh, kama qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'm just paraphrasing. So listening to their friends, and it's important that in this case that we advise our children that from a young age that have good friends and making them realize the importance and the impact that their friends have on their view of the world. Self-discovery and the case that nobody understands them. So as they're growing up, the child sometimes also feels isolated. So they feel part of the group, but when they're in the house, they feel that uh, nobody understands me. My mom doesn't understand me. My dad doesn't understand me. They don't understand what I'm going through. They don't understand the challenges that I'm facing, and this is what they feel. That is what is this is what they feel. How, that's the sense of self isolation, the sense of that nobody knows what I'm going through. And it is very, very important that to reassure the child that we are there for you, we understand there are changes that are happening, but we are willing to support you and to help you and to guide you. So, what are the solutions? And it starts from around, say, 13 years old, this sense of madness. 15, it starts to get a little bit more stronger. 17, 18, 19, but there is always a silver lining. And the child, by once they reach around 19, 20, 21, they then start to get rational. You can see they start settling in their mind. So in that period of time, it's just a matter of waiting it out. And there's always a silver lining. Many a times you'll see what you had taught that child. In that period of time, the child doesn't take that advice. But once they in their 20s, they start working or they finish university or they finish in the Darul Ulum. Now the child starts to realize and starts to implement what you have taught the child earlier in the earlier years. So have no sense of regret that I taught this child so much, but now the child never listened to me. The child will listen to you when the child comes to that realization of full adulthood. So, inshallah, We make dua that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us very good and obedient children. And remember, the greatest solution is to make dua for our children, that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect them and guide them and keep them on the straight path. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect them from the fitna and the fasad of this dunya. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep them firm in their iman and firm in their faith. Ameen. A new study on 12,000 adolescents has revealed that the key factor in the well being and satisfaction of those adolescents is the soundness of their relations with their parents. Regardless of the kind of family they come from, other research has revealed that adolescents who enjoy good family relationships with their parents are less likely to be implicated in serious trouble. So it's important that as the child grows older, and as I mentioned that on the first day, that as the child grows older, our sense of influence on the child begins to wane. So now the child is 15, 16, 17 years old, and now you try to enforce something, it's going to be very difficult to do so. What we need to do is to shift gears a little bit and to become more of a friend. And when I say a friend, it doesn't mean that the relationship as a parent or this hierarchy as a parent and a child doesn't exist. But what I'm saying is that we need to become more of a friend and befriend our children. And they need to be more comfortable with us. But obviously, keeping that sense of respect that you are still maintaining this, that you are still the mom and you're still the dad. But having a good relationship as a friend with your child. And you will see this, that parents that have an open relationship with their children, they can talk about anything. Those relationships are very, very healthy, and children are less likely to be implicated in serious trouble. So it's very important, and this is what I spoke on yesterday, of making that teenager feel important. And you have to take out some time for the adolescent. So when a family issue arises, it is the right adolescent's right of the girl or boy, as long as they belong to the family, whether it's a girl or boy, but it is their right that they feel that they belong to a family, to have their voices heard and debated. So sometimes you'll have to have that discussion with your child. It's not always what you say you're going to win that argument. So in minor matters, give them the benefit of that debate, of letting them say, hey, you know what, that suggestion of yours was good. Giving them a sense of importance, that we hearing what you are saying, we consider your input. So giving them that a sense of belonging, and making the child feel important. Another very important thing is trying to dominate the adolescent. And this what it means is that before, when a child is 5 years old, 6 years old, you could tell a child sit, the child will sit. But now a child is now 16, 17, 18 years old. A child, now if you try to dominate the child is going to rebel. So reduce the pressure on the child. And instead of being from a very top down approach, move it to a side approach, that now you advise in a very loving way. You try not to dominate the child. Obviously, they still need to know that there are rules and regulations. They have to take responsibility for actions if they go out of those parameters. But it's not a matter of trying to dominate the child, because if you come with a very hard approach in trying to dominate the child is going to break, or the child is going to rebel. So a study has revealed that 80% of the adolescence problems in the Arab world are directly connected with the parents' attempt to manage the children's affairs in accordance with their own views and perspective, in line with society's conventions and habit. And this is something which is very profound, something very deep, and something that we need to ponder on. That yes, we want our child to do certain things, but we cannot force it and be that harsh parent that no, you will do this. We need to give the child a sense of input, negotiate with the child, speak with the child, with a teenager, and as they grow older, they're going to make their own decisions. And sometimes you have to allow them, as long as it's within safe parameters, to make their own decisions and to face the consequences of those decisions. It's called growing pains. So we can't always be overprotected. No, and I don't want my child to do this because this is what will happen. The child, sometimes within a very protective environment, we can allow the child to explore certain things, so in a sense that they can get their own experience, so that they can also realize that things don't always work. What I thought in my idealistic mind, it doesn't always work that way. So giving them that space to explore things within Sharia, within the boundaries of Sharia, and within their own safety, that let them also get their own experience of life. And as they grow older, you actually will have no choice but to allow them to do that. But if you have a good relationship with your child, if you can speak to your child about issues and difficult issues, then inshallah you can always, then instead of being this dominating parent, you become more of a loving coach to that of a loving parent to that child, and like a loving coach to someone. So solutions: allowing the adolescent to vent anger in a managed way. Sometimes the child gets angry, then we need to tell them that, let's go for a jog. When you're angry, go for a jog. Recite salawat and salam, it cools your anger. The way when you are angry, also show them how you reduce your anger. You make wudu, you perform 2 rakats of salah, you recite salawat and salam. So allowing the adolescent to vent anger in a managed way. Also, passing of remarks. We should be very careful how we speak to children. Sometimes we pass remarks to the child, and this stays with the child. Children are very, very sensitive, and we should be very cognizant of what we speak to the child. Humor the adolescent. It needs to be a very friendly relationship, a very jovial relationship. So in your house, it needs to be a very warm, friendly environment. Communication through questions and listening. You need to ask your child, how was your day today? Tell me what's happening. What's the latest with your friends? What are your friends up to today? What do you think? So we have good communication and listen. It's not always about you giving advice, but sometimes the child just wants you to listen to what they are saying, and so that they feel that you understand them. And acknowledgement, always continuously praise any good thing that a child does. Praise the child with genuine and positive words. MashaAllah, you have done so well. MashaAllah, you have done well in school. MashaAllah, I see you behaving very well. So continuously acknowledging the good that a child does. Also, because their friends are a very important, integral part of their life, we need to be courteous to their friends. uh, we also need to be directing the adolescents to good channels. Why don't you try this? Why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? All good things which you feel that can benefit a child. Giving them, all right, these are 3 things that you can do. What do you feel will be best for you? Creating a good environment, a healthy family atmosphere, and also very important is to encourage towards excellence without pressure. This is very, very important. Speak about hard work, speak about striving, whether it's in deen, whether it's in school, academics, whether it's in sports, if they play sports, that you should try your best, you should practice, but it should be without pressure that, or if you don't make it, you're a failure. No, it should never be like this. So we should encourage towards excellence, but it should be done without pressurizing the child. And also very important, Islam in morality, that again, we as Muslims, this is our identity, this is how we should behave. We always need to reaffirm this, and we also need to tell them what a moral society we need to live in, what are moral values that we need to have, good values that are needed. Very important that we always look towards the safety of our children. In South Africa, we know that we're living in a very crime-ridden environment. So the safety of our children is of utmost importance where they go. It's not that, and we need to speak to them, have this conversation, that it's not that we want to police you, but we need to know where you are in case something goes wrong, in case something happens, an accident happens, in case you get robbed. We need to know where you are because of your safety and because we are concerned, not because we want to police you or we want to control you. So it's important to have this clear lines of communication. Bullying is very, very important in a sense that we need to be observant that is the child being bullied, whether it's online, cyberbullying, uh, the online presence. Many people will say, I don't want to get involved in Facebook or Instagram. And the reality is the child is going to go on Facebook and Instagram. And the way is to be connected with them and to know so then you can observe, not so that you can also, so that you can know what is happening with their child. Most teenagers, 99%, will have a Facebook account or they'll have an Instagram account or they'll have a Snapchat account, but it's important that you are there with them online. And it's also important that in terms of the emails, in terms of the messages that you have, if they have a cell phone, you should have access to their cell phone, what they are watching, what they are observing. You should be also have the history of what they are viewing. So this is very, very important that you have an online presence to know what is happening with your child. Sometimes children can, because of pressure, post things which they can regret at a later stage of their life. So it's important that we come up front and we rather speak to the child about it. That these are the dangers of when you go online. If you send someone your picture, this is what can happen. So rather have that conversation with your children continuously, and you also being in cyberspace to know what is happening with your with your child. Also, bad friends, we should be very careful that and observant the influences that different children are having on your child. You need to encourage them towards good friends, and when they are bad friends, you need to discourage them and say, don't say, oh, that friend of yours is very bad, because maybe that child that you're saying is very bad, or in your mind is very bad. Maybe that child is giving emotional support to your son or to your daughter. So it's very important how we deal with that. And positive circles, there's always talims that are happening, youth jamaats, youth ijtimas, youth programs. Encourage our children when ulama come, there are programs, that attend these programs and keep them in positive circles. If you know that there's a Kiraj Jalsa that is happening, then go with your son to the Kiraj Jalsa. So it keeps them in a very, very positive environment, and it also encourages them towards maybe they also get inspired to become a Hafiz of Quran or to become an Alim, and ensure that they have adequate sleep. Sleep is very, very important for youth development. So these are a few ways that we can help our children, inshallah. We have come to the end of our successful parenting workshop. If you have any questions, you can always send us an email at jamiaonline1 at gmail.com, and or you could message us in the chat function of the YouTube. And inshallah, you can also message me on my cell phone if you have any questions. My number is 083 3242 That is 083 3242 Okay, so while we're waiting for a few questions, we need to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for granting us good children, for granting us the ability to be part of this workshop. It's a very, very, children play a very important part in our life. And yesterday I got a message about a request that Mulana should have a workshop on adult children. So even when a child becomes an adult, and sometimes when they get married as well, they still remain your child. And how do you deal with them at that point in time? So children a very till the day we pass, they'll be a very integral part of our lives. So inshallah, we make dua that as long as we have a good relationship, we couple it with dua. Inshallah, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala will make it a very positive one, an overall positive one. We need to also that with regards to our children, thank them, encourage them, and tell them how much you love them. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam should also express his love to people when those that were close to him. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was very compassionate to children. How beautiful it was that even Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was in salah, and then his child would come or his grandchildren would come, and they would jump on his back, and you continue to make salah, and sometimes you would remain in sajda for a long time, just so that the child could get the full satisfaction of playing with Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam would be in sajda, then Hassan and Hussein would run underneath him, and they would crawl underneath him. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam also, when he would stand up, then they would climb on his back. And this shows us that how beloved Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was, and how caring Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was towards children. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam would kiss his grandchildren, and one person tells Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam that, I have 10 children, but I've never ever kissed them. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied to this effect, that what can I do if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has removed has removed mercy from your heart. And so Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam would hug children. They need to feel this close proximity to hug your child, to hold your child, so they feel that they are part of you. And this is very, very important. This is also very, very important, that the feeling of touch is there as well. So Jazakallahu khairan. If you have any questions at a later stage, you could always WhatsApp me on 083-3242-853. And we would like to thank you for being part of this workshop. We would also like to thank the Jamia Online, which is an educational institute wherein a person could learn the Alim's course, they could learn Arabic, and many, many other courses, Islamic courses. So inshallah, visit Jamia Online for all the courses that are offered, and we would like to thank them for hosting us. Jazakallahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.